The following is brought to you by our friends over at Actabl. Actabl gives you the power to profit. Please check them out at actabl.com and enjoy today's show. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to another No Vacancy. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm still Glenn Houseman, although I'm trying hard to change that. Thanks for joining us today. Anthony, great to see you.
Great to be seen.
All right, so Anthony, you and I love hotel companies. We love the big companies. We love all the small companies. But I also like companies that try to, invent, recreate, and kind of redo our industry in a way that kind of inspires us, all of us. And I'm hoping today's conversation is going to kind of go in that direction. What do you think? You like hard scrabble companies?
You don't like when the brands just keep coming out with the same type of hotel? You don't like that?
Hey, if I'm a shareholder, I absolutely love it. But what I also love is creativity. And Anthony, that's why both you and I got into this business. Passion, creativity, trying something different. And that's why today we got Mr. Jānis Krūms on the show over here. He's managing partner at Bob's Hotels, Boutique on Budget. Very clever. How are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
It's great.
I like the name Budget on Boutique. How's that? Is that better?
Well, now he's gonna have to do a whole lot of paperwork. So, I don't know how that's gonna go.
Refile everything.
Jānis, tell us a little bit about Bob Hotels and your first model property there in Tallahassee.
Sure. So, the inspiration for us was just seeing a lot of these budget type of properties that were just, if you're driving along and need a quick stay, you couldn't really trust what you're getting anymore. And a lot of the bigger brands, some of the Choice and Wyndham properties, we during COVID, we did a lot of road trips, and it didn't sit well with us when we were booking some of these places. And that was the initial inspiration. We really wanted something that didn't break the bank. You could come in, feel safe, and have a little bit of fun. And that's the initial inspiration. We opened actually almost a year ago now, on July 15th last year in Tallahassee. And it's been doing really well. People seem to really love it. We have over 1,000 reviews on Google. We're number 1 on value on TripAdvisor in Tallahassee. We're, I think, number 4 overall ranking. So the concept's working. People like it. And now we're, trying to see where we can take this.
Yeah, can we pull up some pictures, Glenn, at some point?
Yeah, we'll have Dr. Producer Suzanne work that up.
What happens is when you get to budget, where people talk budget, boutique, budget, whatever, boutique says style, budget says no style. So it's great that budget and boutique are coming together, because that means you have style. Because, again, we've said this 100 times, but you sit in any lobby, close your eyes, and you have no idea where you are in most of these branded hotels, right? Even it's getting the 4-star and the 3-star, you can't tell. Like, just from the lobby, you can't tell. Like, if you walk into,
I got it right here.
One of my favorite brands is, when you walk into an Ace Hotel or something. Like, it's a boutique hotel. It's a brand, but you don't know if that's a 4-star hotel. You don't know what that is. I love that style.
Exactly, Anthony. And that was the inspiration. I'm from Latvia. My wife was involved in the design aspect. She's French, and we were inspired by a lot of the European brands that have the 25-hour hotel, the Citizen M, the B&B. There's a little bit more coming in and a little bit more value there. And we laughed. Any of the new brands coming out, you can just swap the logos and the brands, and I don't think anyone would know which one's which.
I have to disagree with you, because there is a little bit of a change in the color of the white wall that they print. One's an eggshell, one's an off-white. So I don't know if I agree with you.
I apologize. My mistake. But that was, initially, that's the problem. Either the brands are old, stale, and you're going to get, you're going to feel like you don't know what you're walking into. And then from a branding standpoint, the other stuff, there's not a lot of inspiration out there. Yeah, they're going to be fine. They're going to be clean enough, and you're going to choose. But all the times, they're also going to be very expensive. And that's where we're kind of playing that fine line, where we're going to be affordable, but you feel like you're going to be in a nice upper mid-scale property. And that's what our guests are kind of experiencing. And honestly, because the way that we've done the sourcing of a lot of the renovations, the FF&E, we were able to stay under budget. And and make it work so that even when we are at budget pricing, it still makes sense for the business.
Yeah. So I want to take a quick look at the bedroom over here, Anthony. I like it very simple, clean lines, feels nice.
All found in sock. There's a whole lot of ways I can take that. But I like the wallpaper. I like how the picture is off center.
So
I like the night lamps. The wallpaper. That's probably covering the shower, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I love it. It's simple and it's nice, but it feels like you have a little style.
Well, we were trying to, you're limited a little bit with the footprint that we have. We were trying to value engineer certain parts, and where that wall, the curved wall, that is a shower enclosing. That's actually it's an old sleep-in that we converted, and we were limited. Either you have to take the whole thing out, which obviously was going to be quite expensive, or we figured this out, and it actually worked really well. The guests love it. There's a lot of space in the shower actually, but it just was an old one that we had to update. And this way it creates that pop that people really enjoy from the the white wall. A lot of simple, streamlined designs, but that also creates a really nice pop for us.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Sometimes people take that out when it's really not necessary.
Yeah, I like the idea, Jānis, that you're actually looking at an older property and seeing what kind of elements could be repurposed in a way that connects with customers in 2025 as opposed to 40, 45 years ago when that building might have been created.
Well, that's the goal, because there's a lot of these type of products, a lot of these buildings out there. The new build costs are extremely high. So for a budget brand, it wouldn't make any sense. Okay, if you're building a Marriott, et cetera, there's certain things that you can justify. For us, we looked at it. There's a lot of these type of properties. How do we level them up? If you just do a regular PIP on a sleep in, this is still not gonna really have that uplift that you would have. Where we're seeing, this last 2 months in Tallahassee are typically extremely slow. If you go to Tallahassee today, it looks like there's no one in town. We're averaging last month 92% occupancy, and this month we're averaging 94% occupancy with an average of $10 RevPAR over our comp set. And so we're out competing all the established brands with a brand that no one's heard of.
Okay, so this was my question. You actually got to my question before I asked it. Is we say a budget brand, but you're competing with hotels that maybe are not as budget as your hotel, but you're getting more rate. Explain that, because I understand it, but the customer or maybe a young manager coming into this industry doesn't understand. Just because you're a budget brand doesn't mean you can't compete with a higher level brand as far as rate. So explain how that works, especially when you're in more of a B market or A- market.
Well, it's a combination of things. We're not competing necessarily with the ADR they're trying, because the ADR, we're not going to be higher ADR, but we're looking at that fine line of increasing the RevPAR, because we know that we can compete. I know where my break even is because of the acquisition cost, the renovation cost. The bigger brands, they don't do a couple of things. We have real-time price changes. We have, we look at demand drivers. We look at understanding each day what's going on. And also in this type of market, we'll have a pickup of 30, 40% in one day, just because our rankings in Google and TripAdvisor are so high. If someone's looking at us apples to apples, they're picking us. That's just end of the day what's happening. And this is against some of the well-established brands. And so we're playing that fine line where we want to drive RevPAR as much as possible. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing almost a 25 to 30% lift in occupancy. And like I said, on most days, at least $10 lift in RevPAR. And so we might be, $20 less ADR, but we're $10 more RevPAR, which that's all I really care about. And end of the day, it's like what's actually gonna, who's coming in and how much they're paying for each available room. And then what's interesting for us as well is that we're not anchored to our price because of the brand. So during the FSU football games, the graduations, whatnot, our rate really competes with some of the upper mid scales, and we're still going to be lower. No, don't get me wrong. Like we're still not going to try to be the extremely high, but we're going to be double, triple what Sleep In was when we took over. And so we can now have the big weekends be bigger than they were. And then on average, we're going to do better just because we can play that pricing game much better and more aggressively than the other bigger brands in town.
Fascinating. All right. So, quick lesson for our younger people out there. When a building ages, or I should say, when a building typically opens with X hotel brand, and then over years, that piece of infrastructure doesn't necessarily stay commensurate with the standards of the brand, which sometimes may have moved upscale. Sometimes the hotel itself has not been able to keep up with the quality. So, what happens is, the hotels will get reflagged in positions downscale unless people put in a tremendous amount of money. But typically, it's more affordable to go downscale. Combine that, Jānis, with what I'm seeing with consumers. They don't really go, this is an economy hotel. This is a mid-scale without food and beverage, that sort of thing. They see X dollars versus X dollars and look at the pictures and then kind of make a decision on that. So you've got opportunity on both ends with creating a nice value product for a conscientious customer. So that's my little lesson.
So I did see something. A family member was making a reservation and they said, oh, I'm not even going to look at that. It's a 2-star hotel. I said, look at the reviews, because the online companies sometimes take a really nice hotel that is like 3.5 stars, but they don't have a full-time restaurant, or they don't have room service, or they don't have free parking. So all of a sudden they make it a 2-star hotel. And even today, guests are looking, so no, discounting that immediately, not looking at the guest reviews. And I've said it before, I'd rather stay in a guest-rated 5-star hotel that's 2-star on TripAdvisor than vice versa. So do you run into that when you have a budget hotel and maybe the third parties are ranking you at a 2-star hotel when you're really more than that?
We try to be in the 3-star, because 2-star, I think the threshold a lot of times really is like, people don't really want to look at 2. And so it's funny, when Expedia looked at our property, they rated us 4-star, which actually was negative, obviously, because then there's certain expectations. So we were like, no, we can't be 4-star. We need to be a 3-star. And that's the where we would want to, unless there's another bigger property with more amenities, but typically we wouldn't want to be below, just because of what you mentioned. It creates this mindset for people that if they're doing their searches, they usually will exclude that. So we want to be at least a 3, and that's the fine line that we want to be in. And then from a star rating, that's where we want to stick in. But otherwise, it's the guest rating that really matters for us, and that's where we really emphasize for this year. And especially as a new brand, we train our staff to make sure it's got that every interaction matters, and we got to make sure, like from a tech standpoint, we have follow-up text messaging, we have pre-arrivals, we do a lot of things that the bigger brands just don't do. But we know, the bigger economy brands don't do it. So especially basically, I've mentioned Marriott a couple of times, but they do things really well. But a lot of the economy properties just don't. And we looked at, okay, what can we do that the economy properties just don't do? And we do a lot of these follow-ups. We have access, to text messaging with our front desk. Our GM, if there's any issue, is instantly has that prompt texted to him. So we just try to make sure that experience is really good. And somebody actually compared us like, oh, this feels like a Chick-fil-A experience, or this feels like Disney, where there's people who actually care about your experience. Which, if you're paying, on average, our rate's going to be between, let's say, $80 and $120 typically. And you just don't get that in most of those type of properties. They just, you're another person, and no one really cares about you. And we really make sure that our staff understands that it's important. And from a management level, we get reports every shift of what's going on. We understand. We know if there's an issue, like we need to address it instantly.
I was just at the Sphere in Vegas, and when you go into the Sphere, everybody's, how are you? You know where the bathroom is. You have everything you need. And every single person that you meet is literally asking you a question. And it really felt like, wow, you're bringing me into this experience. And it wasn't just transactional.
And that's how we try to do this. We know the experiences that are bad, and we know the good experiences. And you can't please everybody. We know it's hospitality. There's going to be certain times you're just going to do your best, and it's not going to be good enough. But that's the mentality that we've had so far.
So let me ask you a question. When you guys came up with the name of the hotel, boutiques on a budget. I love that. But Bob's Hotels. So tell me the conversation behind that.
I mean, we wanted something that stands out, and Bob, boutique, we were talking about, okay, we're doing a boutique, we're trying to do budget, we're trying to, like, it was a whole big exercise. We actually had another name that I'm not going to mention, but we thought we were going to go this, it would have been totally different branding, totally different everything, but we ran into a little bit of trademark issue, and so we're like, you know what, let's trigger out something else. And this just kind of stood out, and we said, this might be really good or really bad. There's no in between, almost, right? Like, it's not one of those brands that, but to us, it felt memorable. It felt like something that if they're like, what is this? Like, you will remember this brand. And we thought that's number one is really good, because there's a sea of so many properties that, as we mentioned earlier, you can, colors, names, you can throw in a bunch of different names out there that literally can be interchangeable. This isn't. This is.
But if I'm looking online and I see Bob's Hotel, my first instinct may be to skip it. But if I see boutique on a budget, I'm like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. I'm in. You got me. Like, if you just put boutiques on the budget, you're first on my list. If I see Bob's Hotel, you might not be first on my list.
Well, Bob Hotels, BOB Hotels, we're trying a little bit fun of it, because boutique on budget, that's a lot. So we're trying to kind of create a little bit of more of also a billboard effect, right? Like, right. So that you can, hey, what is this? And initially, I mean, when we opened in last July, it took a little bit to kind of ramp up, obviously, because we were brand new. Obviously, there's nothing about us, but within a couple of months, we were ranking top 10, top 15 in the most terms in town, just because we were able to really quickly get the SEO right. But really, it's reviews, and we all know this, right? Like Expedia, we're on the VIP partner list. We're like, we made sure that we're on the top of any of those lists if someone's searching, because that's all that matters. If we're not on those top lists, then we're not getting bookings. I mean, we had all the different travel guys, the photos put us as one of the top hotels in Tallahassee. They only have like 3 or 4 listed on their website. Like, so we made sure any of the lists that matter, and really it's TripAdvisor and Google at this point, and Expedia, OTAs matter, and we're trying to drive more direct bookings, but it's still going to be such a huge driver because that's where most of the guests are.
So how are you thinking about getting those direct bookings?
I mean, it's like I said, it's a combination of we're trying to do the Google meta search, SEO, or all of that stuff. We're trying to build a database of our past guests and make sure that they're.
Right. That's kind of a trick, like getting that started, right, and being able to remarket to those people.
Initially, it's all OTAs. Let's not get like this. That's where the guests are. That's where they're searching, and nobody knows what boutique on budget is, Bob. So like initially, it's all OTAs just because that's where the audience is. Now we're slowly getting the direct bookings. We're using Olive, which is a new booking engine, and I just got the data a couple of days ago, and I think we're 4x the industry average on getting, if someone lands on our website for them to book. I think we're 8x on desktop, and we're like 4x on mobile. So we got to get the mobile better. But it's getting the experience on if they do land on our website to make it super easy. I think it's worth 3 clicks and you can book a room. So all the different small things that a lot of the industry kind of legacy players do, we're trying to make it better and trying to find the best vendors out there that can work for us on any of the experiences that guests will see. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter like all the back end stuff. If the experience from just booking a room isn't good, then you failed. That's all.
Talking about branding, how much social media are you doing, and is it important for any direct bookings?
Little bit. We're doing more localized. So we actually did a campaign with a few FSU and FAMU athletes that we're slowly rolling out right now. We're basically driving like the local, instead of sponsoring a sign at the baseball stadium, we're giving direct pay to the volleyball player, the softball player, and they're coming in, staying, and giving us content. It's more brand building and know-how for the parents and whatnot of FAMU and FSU. From a social standpoint, honestly, social is very limited. It drives almost no bookings. It's more brand stuff. And that's really just, it's going to be like, we'll have that budget just for people knowing us. And it's a word of mouth for the Facebook groups for parents. If they're coming in to see their kids, they know this, to kind of know about us. But from a direct booking, we haven't seen really, the needle doesn't move there. It's really for us, it's OTAs, it's meta search, it's direct bookings.
Makes sense. So what's the expansion plan here, Jānis?
Yeah, we have 3 different properties that we're looking at right now. 2 in Florida, and all of them basically southeast. We're negotiating currently. Trying to
Are they branded hotels right now, or are they boutique hotels?
Branded with well, for
My
us,
guess is they're underperforming with flags that you think you could do a better job with minimal PIP to get it into shape.
Correct. So we're looking. I mean, when we look at acquisition, we look at the per key acquisition number one. I look at, okay, what's it going to take right now? I mean, the last 2-3 months have been a little crazy with all the tariff stuff. Now it's like calmed down a little bit. So now we can kind of reset again. But understanding what's it going to be per key per room. And we're trying to be usually under 20,000 a room. Obviously depends on the state of the hotel. And then it's going to be the brand and seeing how much it would take to either there's going to be liquidating damages. So if you're coming in and want to deflag, you usually have to pay something, or if it's expiring, great. Or if it's just expired. So we're looking at those things, usually expiring within 2 years or 1 year, ideally, so that we can then kind of have that buffer and we don't have to pay too much in liquidating because we're still brand new.
And for those kids listening, 20,000 a key all in. You have to be really, really good at your job, and you have to really know where to look and how to look to get that kind of price point, because that's a difficult price point to get. So you have to be precision to really say, okay, this works. Because a lot of times, a lot of people throw bad money after bad money simply because they're like, oh, this is a great deal. But then, you don't really uncover all the issues, and then you realize it's 30,000 a key. So, it really takes a lot of experience to get that number and make it make sense.
No, I feel like this was our test. We did a lot of good things, made some mistakes here and there, obviously, as you kind of figure out what works, what doesn't. Now it's really it's finding those the right opportunities, and then I look at the STAR reports, STR, understanding the market, because to me I want to understand, can I make this work in the worst case situation? In the worst month, am I still performing? Am I going to outperform? So we're trying to understand all of that, and the market's a little weird because there's properties for sale, but they're not necessarily the deals that you would want because of the interest rate, certain things, it's still not necessarily a buyer's market yet. So we're opportunistic. We're going to kind of look at what makes sense, but the data has to support any of the acquisitions.
Yeah, makes sense. Jānis, are you gonna keep this to yourself, or are you gonna franchise at some point?
Maybe. I think we've been approached. People like the concept. I think it's the right, like understanding the right situation. So that we can, not just be one of another franchises, but understanding how we can grow this properly. So we're working through that. It's definitely a conversation. We only have one, so to us, it's like, let's prove this out. Maybe have 2 or 3, and then see how we can. Okay, then we can say, okay, this is definitely working. There's a playbook that I can give somebody. I feel I can do that now, just because I know what's working in Tallahassee and a lot of the different markets we can kind of test as well quickly and understand what the demand drivers are. But I think eventually, that would make sense for us. But I want to make sure we're ready for it. That's a whole new ball game for us then.
Makes sense to me. Anthony, anything else you got for this guy?
No, thank you very much.
All right, meanwhile, guys, check out the Bob Hotels. The Bob Hotels. Jānis, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you. Thank you. And I do want to let everybody know, quick thing on star ratings, Anthony. I think things get confusing for people because when star ratings originally started, AAA and other companies, the stars would be based on amenities. So you would have to have like a phone in the bathroom or a restaurant, right? But now, AAA is diamond, as Suzanne is saying, but that's the same kind of thing. 4 diamond, it's all based on that way. The terms are interchangeable at the end of the day, in my opinion. And then like Expedia and all those are more like how much people liked it, the experience. And I think that it's kind of gotten muddled and people don't understand what the meaning
100%.
Right? Like
I should probably do a video about that. Because
like getting a 1-star in Michelin is incredible, but getting, 1 star as a hotel, people are like, this is the worst thing I've never
heard. Right. Or even recommended for Michelin's a great rating. I remember when we were first time Michelin actually rated hotels, I was at the Algonquin, and I believe we had whatever rating was the highest rating Michelin gave. Yep. We got it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's because you were in charge.
But again, most people didn't understand it. It was like, if it was a 1-star, it's like, no, that's great.
Yeah. No, right. Exactly. It's very, very complicated for people to get. All right. One thing not complicated. Hey, just click on wherever you get your content to get more of our shows over there, right? LinkedIn, YouTube, the Facebook, all that kind of good stuff. Remember, everybody, you've got one life, so blaze on, and
be kind to yourself.
see y'all next time, right back here on No Vacancy. See you later.